Canada's Drag Race Season 6 hitting 4 for 4. Hi, hello everyone, my name is Jer, and no matter what you hear in the coming weeks, he deserved to be slapped. Last week was an incredibly gaggy episode. These queens are bringing incredible television to Canada's Drag Race, and I love it. This week was filled with much tension, but equal amounts of resolution. Caramilk is pretty disappointed about the results of everything last week, thinking that Velma had far worse critiques than she did, and was told that she wasn't funny, where Caramilk was told that she was funny. So she probably should have been the one who was saved and not been made to lip sync, which on one hand I kind of agree with. I think that both of them received pretty negative critiques. I think in the Snatch game, it's difficult to do someone that has already been done and not do it well. But I also think it's just as much of a risk to do someone like a politician such as Justin Trudeau and then utterly bomb it. But I get where Caramilk is coming from, that the judges were generally more positive towards her. And this week as a viewer, it was satisfying to watch both of them start at such a low and rise to the occasion and end up in high placements. That being said, I have a lot of mechanical problems with the reading battles, and I wonder if this is an adequate substitution for a reading mini challenge. I really appreciated that Canada's Drag Race took a big swing during the last versus the world, changing the reading challenge to be something that is grander and a bigger part of the entire season, but at the same time, that's what we've got a roast for. So I would have almost rather just seen a duo roast here rather than the reading battles again. Because I think what the problem is for me is that there's one person that's high and there's one person that's low from each group. And I've never been a fan of that. I like individual judging unless a group together is so dynamic and powerful that they've got to be rewarded with a high position equally or a low position equally because they were so abysmal. But I applaud Canada's Drag Race for continuing to try and keep the series refreshed and not have it feel so stagnant and stale, much like the US and Ru Judge seasons often do. That's something I appreciated about Selection Royale as well, is that it tried to mix up the formula and not just let it be the same thing. More alliances are stirred up here as we see tension between Velma and Ebony, where Velma is feeling a little bit sideswiped by Ebony saying, hey, remember how we were gonna do Girls Club and then you said I should be in the bottom? What's up with that? This to me seemed less confrontational and more, let's just reset what our relationship is. We're not truly in an alliance, you know that, and now I know that, so let's just move forward and compete. And I think this was to Ebony's benefit. It helped propel her to a win this week, and it was exciting to see how she navigated this week because she was locked in. And PM is still pretty fumed about Hazel because Hazel didn't choose them last week. As someone who is very sensitive and wants my friends to pick me all the time, I get it. But at the same time, I kind of had a hard time connecting with this storyline. Normally in Drag Race, we'll see these situations crop up where someone is frustrated at the other. There is some headbutting and then they are made to lip sync at some point later on in their journey. One of them goes home and the other one is victorious. So we get this cool resolution where we as the audience feel like that whole storyline got wrapped up in a bow. It feels like satisfying good TV. These are two players that came in as strong friends and there was a sense of betrayal because Hazel didn't pick their friends. And the unsatisfying part about this story is that it seemed kind of one-sided. It seemed like Hazel was not clicking with the fact that PM was still mad at her. It seemed like she didn't even quite understand why PM was mad at her. She was so easygoing about the whole thing, like I thought we patched this up, that it didn't lead me to root for PM. It sort of made me feel the same way that the feud between Cynthia and Blackberry came off in this most recent season of Dragula Titans, where it's like, why are you still upset about this? And so PM being blinded by rage this week didn't lend me to root for them. And that lack of rallying behind either one of them didn't make this story of let them battle it out at the end satisfying for me as a viewer, even though I normally love these kind of situations on Drag Race. I just don't understand why this needed to continue to be a problem. And it seems like the alliances in the room are pretty much gone except for the Scissor Sisters, who I will continue to stan until my last breath. I think it's interesting and kind of cosmically hilarious that this week was the reading challenge, because I think it'll allow the room to reset some of this tension that's been building. Get out that frustration before it starts to fester into something else. Especially after the last week was pretty tense in the workroom. I already addressed it, but I have so many problems mechanically with the reading battles. I just don't like the way that they're structured, and I wish that this season they had adjusted them a little bit to not be one high, one low. And I think there were two distinct examples where probably everyone could have been judged as individuals. More on that soon. The mini challenge this week, presented by Carson, was disguised as a styling challenge, but was actually an improv challenge. If it was a styling challenge, I think the win easily could have gone to Maya for that neon getup that I thought was a great choice. Sammy using balloons for breasts was peak insanity, but I also think that Sammy is peak insanity. And girl, why was Ebony doing a Cher voice and why was I living? Carson was surprisingly funny. I did not know that he could improv like that. For me, he was the winner of the mini challenge. But also, Sammy chewed up the set, was very active in the scenes, and did not let herself stay in one position for too long, which I think works for her character in drag, but I think also worked for that particular sketch. She revealed more of her crazy and she was fun to watch. She does win that mini challenge and gets a slight advantage for the Maxi. In my mind, the goal is to be strategic here and choose someone who you think might be the densest in the room, someone who would not be able to retort to you well, someone that does not have a quick or sharp wit. So you want to target someone in the room that you think might stumble the hardest. So it tells me a lot that some of these girls were not chosen until the end, because I think that means the room looks at them as threats in this kind of challenge. Sammy chooses PM as her partner, which I think honestly was the best choice. They are such polar opposites while being very similar. Oh my god, this is brain rot. It's such a Katya and Trixie situation. Sammy looks beautiful but is crazy, and PM looks crazy but is pretty normal. They're the Canadian, We'll talk about everyone's presentations in the challenge because the runways were not factored into critiques, but I also will talk about those. Sammy's entire joke setup and premise was that she was coming up with new names for PM. Today, the P stands for milk. Can I say milk on YouTube? We'll bleep it. I liked that joke setup because it's a good format that you can constantly plug in new things. And if you are quick-witted enough, as your partner is volleying jokes at you, you can twist what they're saying into a new joke. And I feel like that's where Sammy thrived, by listening to what PM was saying and reacting appropriately. Also, making a Laganja joke in front of Alyssa was peak reading the room and understanding your audience. That is a sign of a good entertainer who's looking out and seeing who is here. What jokes can I make that they will connect with? I do think that PM kept up with the manic typhoon that is Sammy Landry. They were both funny together. If I had to choose one, I would say that I liked Sammy better than I liked PM. And so that leaves Sammy as the winner and PM in the bottom. The rest of the pairings are chosen via paper in a fishbowl. Hazel is the very first chosen and picks Caramel as her partner. When Hazel stumbled that very first joke, I knew that it was curtains for the rest of the challenge, and I kind of got the sense that it was curtains for the rest of the episode, which is a bummer because I really like Hazel. And I could not believe that Caramel made a K joke and that they retained it in the edit. What in the Dragula Zavaleta drama is this? I didn't know we were allowed to talk about that on TV. I'm gonna be honest and real. For me, and this is my tea, this is my truth, I didn't find either one of them particularly funny. And this is the biggest problem, in my opinion, about the reading battles in general. I thought they both could have easily been the bottoms. And then I think when you factor in the runway, there was just as much validity for them both to be in a lower position. Caramel does win, which I appreciate because she is diva and I do want her to go very far. It's just a circumstance of this particular challenge. I just don't think it works. Dulce was chosen next from the fishbowl and chose Velma as her partner. To me, this was kind of an easy no-brainer. Velma struggled in the snatch game, and realistically, you'd probably want to choose someone who struggled already in an improv challenge because they might not have the comedy skills to keep up with you. On top of the fact that Velma has already said that she is having a hard time making jokes in English, and she's having a hard time making comedy in English. And you would never know that that was part of her narrative until now, because this week she knocked it out of the park. I do want to say that Brooke making a Yolanda joke at Dulce's expense was evil incarnate, but I also laughed. And Dulce dressed as Daphne was so cute until she turned to the side and you could see how fiercely that wig was pulling up. In the challenge, I think Velma made a perfect choice by playing a nice girl, someone who can present everything softly, but also sharply. Because I think there's something strategic about being a beautiful femme person and smiling sweetly and saying mean, cutting things. And her presentation of jokes was so smooth and fluid. I think it was really to Dulce's disadvantage that she was so mean and harsh and unkind. And they made me uncomfortable because she didn't temper her jokes to try and meet where Velma was coming from. When you're going hard on someone who's playing nice and kind, you just come off aggressive. And I think it would have been smarter for her to maybe pull back on some of the alcoholism jokes, because it was a lot of, hey, your parents and your grandma and everyone around you and your family are all drunks and they all hate you because you suck. And while she was nosediving, Velma was soaring. Her joke about Dulce keeping the drink tickets to use as coupons took me out. It's multi-layered. A lot of times when you are starting out and you're still really green, you will get paid in a drink ticket rather than a booking fee. So this joke is deep because it's implying that Dulce has never even left the tip spot pool. It was such a very clear energy shift anytime that Velma spoke. Like, the audience, I think, was getting tense with what Dulce was gonna say next. I was waiting for someone to yell, "So tell us a joke!" And you would never know that Velma was so unconfident in making English jokes just a couple of days ago. She wins in her group, which is totally valid, and Dulce was a very clear bottom for me. From the fishbowl, Ebony was next to choose, and she picked Maya. I'm gonna be real, I would never want to go against the Snatch Game winner because I would think that person is going to give me a fight. I would have honestly chosen Saltina. And both of them were hilarious, and yet another big problem that I have with the reading battles, because they both were high to me. I laughed at every single joke they told, and I loved their energy and banter together. They worked cohesively and easily were top two, and probably both could have gotten wins. And their critiques were pretty choppy from an editing standpoint. It seemed like they tried to cut out all the good things said about Maya just to justify her being in the bottom, but that wasn't even necessary. Like, they could have broken the rules for this grouping. Ebony won for me, and she wins for the judges. I agreed with that, but I did not think that that qualified Maya to be bottom. And the last two names left in the fishbowl are Saltina and Van Goth. I thought Van looked incredible in these green tones in the challenge, and I think they both were very funny together. I appreciated that Van read herself first. I feel like that sets up the room to be able to laugh with her at any jokes that she makes at anyone else's expense, because she can laugh at herself. I don't think either one of them were more hilarious than the other. I think they kept up with each other decently well, but what I will say is I felt like Saltina's jokes were a little canned. Like, they were maybe a little too overprepared and rehearsed, that it was reading off of a script. And I felt like Saltina's jokes took a little bit to get out, even if she got into a good rhythm as she went. And if runways were considered in this, I think both of them would have landed in safe positions. Yet another problem that I have with the reading battles. The guest judge this week is Alyssa Edwards. Normally I don't talk too much about the guest judges because their presence is pretty inconsequential most of the time, but Alyssa is really out here doing her big one, doing a global tour. She's appeared in challenges as a guest judge that she kind of did horrible at her first time around. Snatch Game and makeovers, and now a reading challenge. She is out here rewriting her Drag Race story for sure, and I appreciate that as the global all-star winner, she's making her presence known on every continent. Where in the world will Alyssa Edwards be next? I love the moment where she remade her writing meme, the "oh, I can't." And I've got to say, on a note of guest judges, when Brooke asked Tracy's favorite read and she said petulant, Fierce did psychic damage to that woman. I live. I cannot wait for Serene to show up at some point this season. I just hope that it's not a hard replacement for Tracy like it was in Canada versus the World. We'll talk about the runway in a truncated manner because they didn't factor into the tops and the bottoms, even though I really think they should have been. The theme is My Chemical Reaction, and I'm glad that they included these because the rumors are that there was a Sparkle Sparkle theme that they did for Canada versus the World, but ended up cutting it because it didn't factor into the critiques at all. I'm glad that they learned from the last time around, but they still didn't 100% course correct. We haven't had an element adjacent theme in quite a while, not since season 3, so this is a fun callback. Hazel is doing something called metallizing, according to the little flavor text, but she said metallicizing? Girl, I don't know who metallicizing is, but I think I went to Christian school with her. These hues of silver and gold were a nice color palette to start out the night. It was very RuPaul season 4 promo to me, but overall, I kind of felt like it was a simplistic look. I wish the armor was a bit more fitted. It was, to me, a soft slay. Maya Fox is an eruption. She is the boom boom volcano. I think the smoke was super effective. I love that clear vinyl so that you can see the interior of the dress, but I kind of wish that instead of that white gown that she had underneath, I wish it was almost like a semi-laundry red sparkle number. I think that would have looked like lava underneath it, because otherwise I don't really understand why there was a peekaboo. And then that outer fabric kind of looked like one of those frayed knit blankets that was converted into a dress. I don't totally hate that. I think it's an interesting way to present distressed on the runway. Distressed garments on Drag Race are typically ones that were just burned, but I like that this one had a different effect to it. And I was obsessed with that atomic bomb hair. It worked for me. Slay. Ebony is doing combustion. I love the 60s glam moment. The Belle magazine was a great addition to the costuming. Her performance was really fun. I loved the finger wagging while she was reading the centerfold. And then she turns around and shows all of the business in the back that it is burned to a crisp from the top of the helmet all the way to the bottom of the dress. I wasn't sure why the fire went to her butt cheeks. Like, the fire department really did a bad job on that one. She looked stunner in canary yellow. This is what Shania meant when she said, "Let's go, girls." And I love that little detail of her underwear matching her hair color. Major slay. PM is next doing bleaching, and I only realized about midway through that it was teeth. And on second watch, I realized that half of the teeth were that gold color and the other half were white. This is a fun idea for the prompt. I loved that the colors were kind of similar to Hazel's because the two of them were having their feud. This rivalry even went to the runway. I loved the stoning on the garment. I thought that was rich looking. The slick hair was cool with this. I think it's a cool silhouette for PM. It was a big slay as far as looks are concerned, and easily one of my favorite things I've seen from PM's package so far. Van Gogh is doing decaying. I love the maximalism of this look. The textures were luscious. I loved this leather and what looked like denim, and the aging that was on those textiles was so impeccably done. I love that there was 10 miles of string intricately interlaced among each one of those layers. This looks like a garment that took a long time to make, and this was very different from what we've seen from Van Gogh so far. The skull mask was great. This is great versatility. Max slay. Cara Milk is doing melting, and this is another reason why I think that Runway should have factored into the performance, because this would have brought her to a lower place for me, and I hate to say that. Trying to be objective here. It's very on brand for her to be a melted chocolate bar. I think I would have been a little more preferential to this if I hadn't already seen 2 pieces in week 1 that were in this color palette already. It was a bit simple for me. I would have loved even more melting going down the body. She looks glam, she looks beautiful, but is it enough? Soft chop. Sammy is doing crystallization. This was so share-coded, but it kind of ran the same problem as the Deer Runway a couple of weeks ago. It's so off topic. It's that tacky glam that I kind of love, and I don't know why I love it because I would hate it on anybody else, but it works for her. I think far too many Drag Race girls are afraid to look silly on the runway or present this kind of drag for being perceived as cheap and being negatively critiqued by bedroom queens. That being said, it was a soft chop because I thought it was very off topic. For crystallization, I want like a Lawrence Chaney pink monster where the crystals are everywhere, like a big Doctor Who monster, you know? Saltina Shaker is doing cryogenesis. I did like the pipes with the blue lights in them. I thought that was interesting, but the overall look was very space coated. I was not getting cryogenesis. I kind of wish that it looked icier. There's not enough avant-garde makeup, like that little blue finger that she's got. It was very Lucy from Fallout Pooh finger. I wanted to see that effect here as well, like start somewhere on the outside that it's freezing towards the middle. I didn't really get the concept. It was a bit too spacey. I would have loved if maybe there was a lab coat that brought it to a science place like a scientist who was playing around with cryogenesis and accidentally got the formula on them and that made them freeze. I think that would have worked better than this. Because otherwise I didn't really understand why they looked almost like an astronaut, but they're freezing. Chop. Dulce is doing erosion. The earth tones I thought were kind of dull. The dress length is very awkward. And the draping was sort of like, oh, I can drape. I know how to drape. I read about this in class. Max Chop. I have nothing to say about this. Velma is doing precipitation. Precipitation! Oh, this is such a moment. The mist coming from the hair was exquisite. I like this wet and white face. It really sells the story to me. I love the twist of the pants with that train coming off of them. I could look at this forever. The shape is perfection. It's fitting well, but it has a great flow to it. Yo, and the crystals coming off of it dripping like water. It was like yassified cast form to me. She is just so good at drag and I love her aesthetic. I would have loved if this had gotten critiqued. Beyond being phenomenal in the challenge, she also was phenomenal on the runway. In my Peppermint Mocha fantasy, the top 3 were Maya, Ebony, and Velma. And I think that would have been great for Maya to continue her upward trajectory from Snatch Game, continuing to be good at these style of challenges, and for both Velma and Ebony to have gotten great critiques, not only in the runway, where they I think excelled, but also doing even better in a comedy challenge, where last week they were maybe not the best in the room of that category. They're keeping up with the Snatch Game winner, which would have been great storyline. Plus, this runway needed to be talked about. Based on the challenge, Ebony wins the Maxi, which I completely agree with. I stan this diva, and Maya and Van are both called as safe from the bottom group. And I think this is maybe where the only mechanical shift that I appreciated came for the redo of this challenge, because there were 5 bottoms. And 5 bottoms at a party is rough when there's only 1 top. The judges get to select 2 people that are then safe, which I think works more in their favor because then people that didn't actually struggle could be moved on to the next round. Now, when it came to the runways, I think that Maya was maybe weaker than both PM and Van. However, I think that Maya was hysterical in the challenge, so there was no reason for her to be in the bottom. Van, I think, was very good in the challenge in the same way that PM was. I think both of their runways were very strong, but I think I liked the versatility of what Van Gogh brought more than I liked what I saw from PM. So I think it's fair that these 2 were the ones that were saved. That means that the bottom 3 are Hazel, PM, and Dulce. And the Chaos Master herself, Ebony, gets to choose who is going to be safe using the power of the Golden Beaver. This Untucked was great because PM reaches a hand out to say, hey Ebony, if you save me, I will extend that gratitude towards you later. I can feel myself coming out on top next week. So save me now and I might save you later. And that opens up the room to offer the exact same gesture. I think the way Ebony played this was part strategic, part empathy, because Dulce was breaking down about being in the bottom and feeling like this is not her time to go. All of this frustration is really getting to her. And Ebony was in the same position, wanting to break to the top and feeling like she just wasn't getting there yet. And so I think Dulce's vulnerability and talking about that resonated with how Ebony felt not that long ago, and she thought, you know what, I would have wanted that grace too. I'm gonna give that to you right now, and hopefully you can slay next time and get your big one. But also I think that she was being smart. Both PM and Hazel are strong competition. Stronger competition. PM is a great performer, and coming up on 9 Queens, there could be a girl groups next week. There could be a heavy performance challenge coming up, and there certainly is going to be a lip sync battle coming up because Canada's Drag Race does that. And so if you knock out one of the stronger lip syncers now, like PM has been touted to be since the moment they walked in the workroom, that is good strategy to make sure that you're set up for success later on. So she chooses Dulce, which I think was the right choice, because then we get this battle of these 2 people who have a little tiff, even if it's one-sided, and you get to knock out someone who's a heavier hitter. Regardless of how Hazel has been doing in the competition so far, she kills it on the runway. So if there's any type of runway challenges that are coming, Hazel is going to do very well. And there's very likely performance challenges coming up, and PM is probably going to succeed in those. The song is Dumb Blonde, and I thought that PM looking like gender neutral mom from Mean Girls was psychotic. I think it was a pretty fierce battle between the two of them, nothing overly remarkable. I think maybe there were a few too many reliances on stunts and gimmicks, which I kind of get bored by at times in lip syncing. What tipped the pendulum in one direction for me was when Hazel locked herself into place and kind of just emoted the entire rap. Right at the tail end of the rap, PM does a trick and didn't finish the line. I would have loved if they had, and that would have leaned me more into their favor. And then I also think, okay, both of them were about the same in the lip sync. What are they bringing to the competition that I want to see more of? I think they're both on equal footing. I have liked what Hazel has brought to the runway more than I've liked seeing what PM has brought to the runway. So I would, in theory, want to see more of what Hazel has to bring than I would of PM, because I think both of them have kind of run their course on Drag Race already. So I don't know if I totally agree with the save, but I get it on some level that both of them are not really bringing a ton to the show. At least PM is bringing good confessionals and is engaging with the camera, where Hazel, I think, kind of disappears at times. Next up is a drag talk show. We've seen these types of interview challenges go south so many times that it doesn't make me look forward to it as an audience member. But since we're in top 9 and we haven't had a girl group yet, and we haven't had a lip sync slay off yet, that makes me excited that the next 2 challenges might be that after this one. Anyways, let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below. Make sure to check out the Extravaganza Extra membership if you want to check out some of my videos before they are posted. It helps support the channel and supports me. Thank you for watching, and I will see y'all on the flip.